Introducing Indian River Connections, a collaboration to spotlight Indian River's characters. Interviews, biographies, life stories, and projects. These are the people behind the scenes. Business owners, entrepreneurs, journalists, activists. Extraordinary everyday citizens, each with a story.
Hello. Today on the Connecting People and Places podcast, we're honored to welcome Sheila Matthews, a passionate advocate and the co-founder of AbleChild, a nonprofit that's been on the front lines of protecting parental rights and ensuring families are fully informed when it comes to mental health decisions for their children. Sheila's work is rooted in personal experience and a deep commitment to transparency, education, and choice. From challenging outdated systems to empowering parents with knowledge, her voice is one of courage and conviction. So without me wasting any more time, Sheila, thank you for joining us on the Connecting People and Places podcast. How are you this evening?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
I'm really interested in AbleChild and what you do now, but more so what led you to co-found, right? You're co-founder.
Yes.
What led you to birth AbleChild?
Really good question. A lot of people ask that. So I'm a mom of two boys. They're grown now. They're young men. But when my son was 7, I was living here in Connecticut, in a very affluent town of New Canaan, Connecticut. And the school was pressuring me to put my son on psychiatric drugs. I didn't really know anything about it. You know, I had no idea that this whole dark world existed. And I was filling out a checklist for my own son, as well as the teacher and the school psychologist. And I was never told that it was a subjective label. And I was never told that it was not based in any sort of science. And so without me knowing it, I labeled my son, or was in the process of labeling my son, with attention deficit disorder. And everybody kind of knows that. If you've been in the public school system, you know what that is. And I fought back. I was getting ready for a meeting at the school with the team, the IEP meeting. I happened to turn on the TV the night before, and on C-SPAN, I saw a mom. Her name was Patricia Weathers, and she was testifying before Congress, and she had placed her son on a psychiatric drug at the urging of the school called Paxil. And she ended up not even recognizing her son anymore. The way she was describing it to Congress, it was like it really resonated with me. I was going through the same thing. So I called Congress and I got her number. And I called her up and she said, when's your meeting? I said, tomorrow. She really quickly schooled me on the lack of science and said, you know what, I will be here for you after your meeting, but I would tell them I don't believe in attention deficit disorder. So I did that. I got back and it was a really good meeting, actually, because they didn't know what to do with me. They were like, what? And so when I got back, I called her and thanked her and learned more about what she was doing as a mom. There was no organization. There was no help other than this mom helped me. And we made a pact with each other, Patricia Weathers and I, that day. And I'll never forget it. And we said, we're going to help other parents because this is dangerous and it's not benefiting our children. So that's how AbleChild started.
And I'll tell you why I think I'm drawn to the story, especially being Connecticut. I don't know how old your son is, but I'm 45. And I have heard stories from my parents. We left Connecticut when I was only 13. Thank God. And the school system there wanted to label me ADD also and refer me for medications, just like they did my brother, who's 8 years older than me. So it goes to show you it's been going on, especially in some of these states, for decades. I mean, decades on decades. So how many people have been drugged when they didn't need to?
Yes, this is definitely a human rights issue. It's happened to everybody really that's had a connection with the public school system, meaning if it didn't happen to you, it probably happened to one of your siblings. My son at the time was 7 and he's 30 now. And so it's been decades since I've started AbleChild, and every time I meet somebody, it's like a light bulb goes off because they're like, my God, that happened to me. And to think that there's no such thing as ADHD, and that it was voted in by a group of psychiatrists, and then the school system took it on and the government started funding it. And so it's really a human rights issue, a lot of fraud and abuse of children on multiple psychiatric drugs.
And the scary part is they convince these parents that their kids need to be drugged. Fast forward probably 30 years, relatives of mine had their children in Florida labeled the same way through the school system. And it was, like you said, it was a nephew of mine and I wouldn't even recognize him. And it was pretty scary. However, they finally got him off it. But at the time in Florida, they had some state standardized testing, FCATs, but depending on the students and the level of kids you had labeled in this category, their scores didn't count against the school's overall rating. So it was more common than it should have been. So bring us to AbleChild now. I've noticed on social media you host events, you give out awards. What is it you do now, and how are you empowering and encouraging others?
Well, that's a really good question. So today I work on multiple issues across the country. One is the subjective nature of attention deficit disorder and other psychiatric labels. So our mission is informed consent. So we are out in the community as much as possible. And today we have tumbled into the area of mass killings because a lot of the children that are on these psychiatric drugs, they're on multiple amounts, cocktails that have never been tested on children before. And a lot of them are connected with these mass shootings. So what I do is I, believe it or not, investigate and try to obtain the mental health records of the killers around the country. I've worked on Sandy Hook most prominently. Our organization sued the state of Connecticut for mental health records for Adam Lanza, who was the alleged shooter in that violent crime. And the state never released the documents. We became nationally known for that case. Basically, the state said if the records got out, a lot of people would go off their meds. So we ended up not being able to get the records. We decided to not pursue it through the courts. Unfortunately for the public, we couldn't do that because of finances. And so then we worked on Tennessee, the Covenant mass killing at that school. We've worked on multiple ones across the nation, like Parkland shooter in Tennessee. What we do is we comb through all the evidence and we try to get to the diagnosis and the amounts of drugs that the perpetrator was on. And so I do that. I'm out in the public eye regarding giving awards to such people as James O'Keefe. Stephen K. Bannon and Jim Hoft and, multiple people. I've done 2 years of awards. And the reason why I've selected those people is because they've had the courage to go against the narrative, and they've had the courage to speak out when nobody else will, and against all odds. And so I believe that that is something that is worth awarding people for. And it has been a godsend for AbleChild, because now we're writing, and the Gateway Pundit is picking up our pieces. I'm a guest on the War Room, and I'm indebted to James O'Keefe for introducing me to Another Door and Another Door. I met him in Connecticut during one of his investigations. So I've been really blessed to have this as my passion. And our whole thing as a nonprofit is to be out in the public and educate people.
I think it's great. Now you're educating voters, you're empowering or inflaming politicians, I would say. And you are now adding another title to what you do as co-host of a new podcast, right?
Yes, I'm really excited about that. Yeah, it's cool. CJ from the Spark Free Press has become a really good friend of mine. He has the courage to start this newspaper, and it's an old-fashioned newspaper where it's tangible. You can get a copy of it, as well as being online. And CJ invited me to work with him, and I invited, we just collaborate together, and we decided to do this podcast. And we really want Vero Beach and Indian River to have a different voice. I live on the island when I'm not in Connecticut, and all I see is the local newspaper. Though I love it, I am a realtor too. I see 32963, and it's a beautiful paper, but it doesn't appear to have a fair and balanced approach to stories. So I believe that another voice in the community is really important.
I think you're 100% right. And I think the direction you guys are going with shattering of the narrative doesn't just hit home local. I mean, that was the beauty of what we started doing at Indian River Connections. It kind of started local, but we noticed all the stories we're covering here are stories in every school district, every hospital district, every household, everywhere. And I think it's really important. Before I wrap this up, I wanted to show your website. How could people help and contribute to AbleChild?
Sure. We have a donation button. We do not get any federal, state grants. So you could donate. And the most important thing that you could do if you don't have the finances is to sign the online petition. And that is to get federal hearings on the link between psychiatric drugs and mass violence, these school shootings across the country. So it is really imperative that I get 10,000 signatures. So it's actually, money's great. We all love money because it allows you to do different things. But the petition itself is so valuable to me. Each signature, you can put in a comment. I read most all the comments. And at the end of gathering my last 10,000 signature, I will bring it to the White House and to the House and Senate, which represents the ability to get a hearing. So that to me is much more valuable at this point than money. I do love getting financial assistance because we don't get any grants. And we are currently going to be launching, just to let everybody know, we're rebranding. I've had the little blue elephants since my son was younger. So we're kind of going to grow up a little bit with the logo, and we're redesigning our website. And that's all due to the contributions from people like you out there listening to this. That's how we funded this, is through your donations. So it allows me to have a position on the internet where people can get information, not only in the United States, but around the world.
That's great. Now, what's next? I know there's a battle in Connecticut. Are you on multiple fronts besides DC and Connecticut and Florida?
We just had a big win in Tennessee, where we got the first landmark bill, pulling the blood from shooters who die. And Wyoming wants, and that's for therapeutic levels of psychiatric drugs. So Wyoming is looking to pass similar language, but stronger, which is a good sign. So we're going to be in Wyoming this summer. Connecticut, we're on the forefront. We're nonpartisan, so I work with Democrats and Republicans, but one of the things that I really I'm doing and drove me to the mission I'm doing now in Connecticut is I was on an oversight meeting on television live in Connecticut talking about the drugging of foster care children, and my mic was cut, and they changed the rules and closed down public comments. And I'm a human rights organization, so basically I was kicked out of Connecticut. So I'm sponsoring a huge RV, which has landmark pieces on it of people who have fought for freedom, like President Trump in Butler, Fight, Fight, Fight. It has Martin Luther King on there. It has President Kennedy and Jacqueline Onassis in the convertible. It has 9/11. So I decided to work with this organization, logical conservative. Yes, I'm sorry. I decided to work with them to sponsor, and we're looking for more sponsors and money. But we are entering Connecticut on June 16th, and we are going to tour the different towns. And the biggest thing is to bring attention to the Republican chairman's position. Though we don't care who they elect, they have to post it on the websites. They have to educate the people. And the current chairman in there now is been entrenched in there, and there's no disclosure about the election. So the state of Connecticut has a super majority. And, we have whistleblowers. We're going to have reporters on this RV. And what we're finding is, and you know what? I'm going to just give you this. We just did a Shattering the Narrative piece that was just posted. I urge people to really take a look at what we're doing in Connecticut and why.
Yep. And you can find that video on your X account, AbleChild, I believe, and Exposed. Let me get this right. At Exposed Narrative, where you can find a link to the X video or Rumble, what you see fit for your best viewing. I noticed that was a great interview with a radio show host from Connecticut, right?
Yes, and a former candidate.
That's crazy. That's a warrior in Connecticut when you go for office, especially against the liberal progressives up there, because it's, in my opinion, Connecticut is lost. But there's still hope.
Yeah, well, everybody that I was talking to do this tour into Connecticut is the deep blue state. They were like, forget about it, lost cause. And I got a lot of good lucks. So, I'm eager to see. We're going to document it. We have some eyes nationally on it. And there's 79 people who get to vote for this new chairman. and the election is June 24th. I'm already in Connecticut now, and the bus is coming on the 16th. So we do have a window of opportunity to stir the pot. And again, the only reason why I'm doing it is because it's corrupt, and they kicked a human rights organization out. And, you know, I got to the grassroots of why this is happening. It has nothing to do actually with the Democrats. It has to do with the Republicans rolling over and not giving out the seats, not defending the seats or putting candidates up. So it's going to be a very interesting journey into Connecticut.
Okay, so AbleChild.org is where they can sign the petition and donate.
Mm-hmm.
I know logicalconservative.com, I believe, is how you can donate separately to that cause, right?
Yeah.
In Connecticut. And then, of course, follow along on X at Exposed Narrative. Sheila, thank you very much for joining us at Connecting People and Places. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I would just say thank you for all you do. And I'm so grateful to be considered worthy of an interview. So I look forward to working with you and everybody else in Indian River to make it fair and balanced and be able to discuss anything.
Thank you very much, Sheila, and have a good night.
Introducing Indian River Connections, a collaboration to spotlight Indian River's characters. Interviews, biographies, life stories, and projects. These are the people behind the scenes. Business owners, entrepreneurs, journalists, activists. Extraordinary everyday citizens, each with a story.